Hi, Colin. Good to see you. Well, let me do a couple of introductions and welcome you here, and a few announcements or two while people are showing up. I'm Mark Sokol. Some of you have been regulars on this. Some I haven't seen before. We do a monthly town hall. Each time we pick a different topic. Uh, and those who come really want to learn about the topic and discover or share their own experiences doing this particular subset of consulting psychology. So the conversations have uniformly been really fun. I've enjoyed them. I've learned things. Our speakers have been great, and people get to network around things that they do. And I'll tell you about our speakers in a moment and get on to our topic. But let me just quickly announce a couple of upcoming things, because we have another event coming up this week. On Friday, Mira Brancu is doing a session at noon Eastern. It's a webinar on how to support high-achieving driven women who are ambivalent about leadership. And she's given a lot of thought to leadership in general, particularly women in organizations and women in leadership. And I think that if you have the time and the interest, there's a session that's coming up this week. If you look all the way out to August, the middle of August, for those of you who are not Hogan certified and always thought maybe I should do this, we have a certification workshop with our Hogan colleagues. But before then, on July 29th, we'll have another town hall, and Colin Cooper is going to join us on that. This is the topic of spirituality and consulting psychology. And I have to say, everybody I've mentioned to has said, wow, that's cool. Nobody ever really talks about that stuff. But Colin knows a whole lot about it, and we are going to have a great conversation. If you can make that as well, you can register for that on the website too. So we have a number of people here. I'm glad to see everyone. The topic today is about small business consulting, and how is that different from other things, including consulting to family businesses and consulting to closely held businesses. And the two people joining me today for this have experience in this, working with nonprofits and smaller organizations as well. I've had a chance to spend time with each of them, so I know how deeply they think about it, and you know them both also from our board. Mark Sirkin and Sunni Lampasso are here, and without further ado, they also run a special interest group on this topic for us, for those who want to dive in. But without further ado, I'm going to just turn it over to the two of you. As per, if you have been on these sessions before, they're going to just give us some thoughts about this whole topic for about the next 20 to 25 minutes. Then around the half hour, we'll break into some breakout groups, give you a chance to talk about your own experiences in small business consulting, or pose questions or what you'd like to learn from others here. And then we'll have a little time at the back end for just some plenary and share what we've learned. Sound good? All right. Mark, Sunni, the screen is yours.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mark, and good to see you again, Sunny. I'm looking forward to this. So all I would, Sunny and I have spoken about how we'd like to present this material, and I think it would make a little bit of sense to say that I'm going to take a larger sort of overview of the field, a little data, a little statistics, talk a little bit about what people do who are psychologists and who consult to these smaller businesses, and also what the opportunities are, because I'm sure at least some of you are thinking about this, but maybe don't have a lot of experience and are thinking to yourselves, well, how do I break into this? Where do I start? What do I do? I'm happy to talk about that. And I think Sunny has also some concrete ideas. What I would ask you to also do is think about questions as we are speaking. When we break into small groups, that could be an opportunity to ask those questions, or we'll come back into a larger discussion to share what we've learned, and that might be another opportunity to ask those questions. So without further ado, let me get started. Whoop. Is that right? Yeah, it looks good. Let's see if that works. Okay, can you see my screen? Yes, okay. Let us fill the screen. Okay. Looks good. Is this is you getting the whole screen or are you getting bits and pieces? Bits and pieces. Okay.
You were on whole screen before.
Yeah, let me see if I can get that back again. I think it wants to play a whole
That's
show.
it. That's better though.
Let's try it. It wants to play it rather than let me just
You
go
just have to
through.
switch screens because you were showing your notes page.
Okay, well, let me
Right
see.
at the bottom. There's a little screen button right by your size.
Right by
Bottom
where
row. Bottom row to the go to the other way, other direction. Keep going. A little further over.
this.
Nope. It should be a little, you should be able to do like a full page thing on that, right next
It's
to the
the
sizing.
second icon to the four squares, the screen icon that's next to the four squares. You see the four squares at the bottom? And it's the
Um,
screen icon. The second,
That's
okay.
it. Nope,
This
right
one.
that's
there,
it.
right
Right
there,
there.
right there.
Nope, you had it.
Now switch screens at the top, swap displays, and that way we will see your notes
All right.
at the
Well,
top
how do I
left. At the top left,
View slideshow.
swap displays. Swap displays.
slideshow? All right.
Now
Now
you're
There you
there
go.
with the help of friends.
it does indeed take a village, folks. Thank you. Okay. So let's talk about the challenges and rewards of consulting to small businesses. I'm a big fan of this. Mark and I have talked a lot about this. Sunny and I have talked a lot about this. And Sunny is really kind of inspirational. I'm going to embarrass her a little bit. She does some really great work, especially in terms of marketing and reaching out to people in the field. So she has a lot to offer to me personally, as well as to all of you. Before we get into some of the consulting details, let's talk about the demographics or the opportunity because it's unbelievably huge. Okay, just very quickly, and we'll delve into some of these a little bit more. There are between 31 and 32 million small businesses in the U.S. By the way, I'm going to be showing several slides with lots of numbers. Those numbers might wiggle around a little bit, 31.7 versus 33, whatever, but they're all going to be generally in the right direction, okay? So I'm just warning you now, if you're one of those people that likes to check numbers, they're going to be a little off. So with that many small businesses, there are over 60 million small business employees. As we'll see in a few moments, these businesses are far and away the top employers in the country. And frankly, whatever is true for the United States is even more true when you get outside the United States. So most businesses are these smaller types of businesses, okay? Many of these companies, over half, say that finding great talent is their biggest challenge. Now, if you're an experienced consultant, your alarms should be going off because that is very often our sweet spot as consultants. So we can talk more about that. Surprisingly, at least for me, over 85% of small business owners take a salary that is less than $100,000. And the reason that's relevant is because I think many of us sort of have this sense that, well, if you're a small business owner, you're making good money and you're making enough to hire fancy consultants like us. But that is not always the case. And I find in these small businesses, some of them tend to be very cost conscious. So you have to be aware of that. I think at least I've learned that I pay attention to those numbers early on. And if I feel that this is a business that really can't afford me, I may work extra hard to find a way they can afford me, or just say, look, this may not be cost effective for you. And, I'm here if you need me, but like a lawyer or something like that, you may not be able to afford the services that I'm going to recommend. But that may be the beginning of a discussion, not the end of a discussion. Many of these businesses operate from home, especially more and more nowadays since COVID, as well as the sophistication of computers. Women actually make up over half of the sole proprietorships in this country. And of course, women-owned businesses get a tax advantage. So I'm seeing more and more married couples where the wife or the partner female partner owns the business for tax purposes. There are tax advantages to being a woman-owned business, minority or woman-owned business. And something that I spend some time thinking about and helping people with, almost half of these small and medium-sized businesses have no cybersecurity defense plan. So they're quite vulnerable. And this may be something that you can talk about with them and offer them if you have any expertise at all, or frankly, if you can partner with someone who does. This is a problem that many of them share. Some of them don't know anything about it. They underestimate the problem. Others are worried. They just don't know what to do. So let's look at the numbers for a bit, because I think they're very instructive. Again, this is a bit of a repeat. You can literally throw a stone in a downtown area and hit a family business, no matter which way you throw that stone. So 30.7 million is a lot. And so again, this is a target-rich environment for people like us. Also, I think it's worth thinking about or realizing that, most businesses are small businesses. We all know the big brands and the billion-dollar companies, but that is not the norm, right? And so those of us who are trained to be consultants with big companies, we're always looking for those multi-billion-dollar, very large companies with lots of divisions and a structure and things like that. That may not be where the most opportunities are. And frankly, I personally enjoy working with these smaller companies for a lot of reasons, both family businesses, smaller family businesses, as well as non-family businesses, partly because if you have experience in a big company, you know that if you're hired as a consultant, generally you're working through HR. You may be lucky to get a meeting or two with the president or the CEO. In small companies, you start with the CEO hires you, and you're reporting back to the CEO on a regular basis. I find that very often a lot more gratifying than working in a very, very large business structure. It's important to realize that you're swimming against the tide, okay? The fact is that many of these small businesses fail. Size does matter when it comes to business success, not completely or not solely, but it's important. If you look at that slide in the lower right-hand corner, more than 50% of these businesses fail in their first year, and it gets worse. If you read the small print, 95% of startups fail within the first 5 years. It's one of the reasons I'm attracted to family businesses, because at the very least, they have staying power, and you're not going to run into this new business failure phenomenon that we see a lot. Millennials and Gen Zers, interestingly enough, or maybe not surprisingly, are much more comfortable creating businesses and having side businesses. So I read a statistic recently that said millennials and Gen Zers often are working in 3 or 4 businesses simultaneously. And that's important to realize. As a consultant, maybe you develop a specialty or can help with some of those, and not necessarily all of them or just one. And then last but not least, a lot of these small businesses have identified, as I said earlier, that getting the right people in the right places is one of their biggest struggles, whether it's hiring talent, keeping talent. This is something we as psychologists know something about and can often help folks with. So now you see the landscape and hopefully understand a bit more about the opportunities that are out there, at least in terms of the numbers. Let me talk about how you can approach small businesses that may or may not be new to some of you. Okay, I like to start from the beginning and think about what is it that we do as business consultants. And to do that, like let's say being a physician or a veterinarian, you need to know anatomy, you need to know physiology. So this is how the average business is set up, I'd say 99% of businesses have some structure like this. And again, if it's a large company, you could be talking about thousands of people being employed in each one of these squares, okay? If it's a solo business or a very small family business, you may find that the CEO is doing all of these functions. So these are not just places in an org chart. These are functions, and it's important to remember that because these businesses have to perform these functions, whether or not they have separate departments, whether or not they have separate people. Like I said, if it's one founder who's responsible for everything, that founder has to do all these things or hire people to do all these things. And as a consultant, you must understand what some of these functions represent, the challenges, so you can be helping your clients do better. The kind of typical approach is what we sometimes call a spoke end wheel. It's your traditional organizational structure with a CEO on top. They tend to be paternalistic. It is definitely the norm. A lot of the ideas and directions for what the company does and where they're going to go, how they're going to go to market, come from the top and work their way down. One of the negatives about this approach is that workers are often seen as cogs in a machine driven by the owner. And while many owners might even have that sense or sensibility, as psychologists, we know it's not that simple, and no one I know is a cog. I can think of other words for them, but cog is not one of them. There are other models out there. Of course, the family business model is one that I and some of us are very familiar with. But there are new models of business emerging all the time. So this notion of an executive circle, a business of peers. Mark and I have done some work with partnerships. Those are different structures because typically in partnerships, everybody is more equal than not. Doesn't mean they can't employ other people who are not partners, but the partnership itself is a different kind of organizational structure. And we see this constantly proliferating. So keep your eyes open. If there's a new structure, if it's non-traditional, that may well be an opportunity for you as a consultant. Just the last couple of slides. So, I want to answer the question I posed at the beginning. What do psychological consultants do? Or what can we do? Okay. Well, first of all, I want to remind everyone on the call of the skill set that you already have. And it's important to realize, so to ground yourself and give yourself a certain amount of confidence if this is not a familiar space to you. First of all, many of us have been trained in systems. We know systems. If you've had any courses in family therapy or organizational theory, you understand systems. If you don't really know what I mean by systems theory, you really should do some reading and learn what that means. A simple statement could be that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That summarizes a systems approach as well as anything, but obviously there's a lot more to it. As psychologists, we are trained to be expert communicators. Don't underestimate the value of that skill. We know how to listen. And we also know how to express difficult and emotionally laden ideas. Your average business owner runs from something like that. And because it is our strength, this is an area where we can offer help. Having difficult conversations for employers, that sort of thing, helping people at work have difficult conversations with each other. We are trained to solve problems. We are good at guiding others, navigating the shoals of business. So in other words, coaching falls under this category. And we all know that coaching is a tremendous opportunity at this point, and many people earn a living doing coaching. I'm going to ask this what else as a rhetorical question. Think about that. You may in fact have some thoughts or questions as we go into break. So how do you help as a psychological consultant? First of all, it may require a reframe. In other words, somebody might come to you and say, hey, can you help me make more money? Now your first impulse might be, hey, I'm not a finance guy. I don't help people make money. But maybe you can say something like, well, if you have people working for you, I can help you work with your people to be more effective. So sometimes you want to reframe a request into something that's work you can do. And I think that's a skill you learn over time. I think it is important not to mislead or overpromise. It's one of the um, um, let's say negatives that people sometimes associate with consulting in general. They overpromise and under-deliver. Whereas one early client said to me, yeah, consultants, I know who they are. They're people who borrow your watch to tell you what time it is. So, there's a little bit of a reputation around consulting. Don't overpromise, underpromise if anything, and over-deliver if you can. I also think it's important from an ethical as well as a functional point of view to stay within a framework of defensible competency. And what I mean by that is, don't tell a startup you're going to help them raise money if you don't have any experience in finance or raising capital. That's not your training. Your training is in psychology. So try to frame the issues you're working with in terms of what psychologists can do, what psychologists know about, what psychologists help with. How did your training help you provide this service? Could be something you ask yourself. I also think you need to think about breaking down large global requests. Hey, can you help us? Into requests for actionable work. And this is an interactive or iterative process. So very often it starts with, you want to get the client to a place where they can start the sentence with, can you help me X? And these are all verbs. These are all things that we as consultants can help people do. I think it's important to remember you're assisting people. You're not doing it for them. So you don't have to know how to do a certain thing, but you can help people do what they know how to do. It's always important to know what you won't do. Okay. And sometimes you don't know that until they ask you and you say, that's not what I do. Sorry. But I find that people respect that. They are half expecting you to agree to anything to get paid because that's what often happens in the real world. And if you don't do that, you gain respect. So I would think twice about what you promise. And also, you should try to get a team of people that you're familiar with their work and can vouch for it, because you will need lawyers, you will need accountants, you will need financial planners at some point. And if you have a stable of people that you can recommend, that adds value for you and for your client. So again, don't do it yourself. Don't throw up your hands. Recommend someone that you're familiar with. And part of your job is to get a group of people like this, okay? I'm going to stop now and turn this over to my colleague, Sunny, and see where we go from here.
Great. Well, Mark, I think you did a really great job of pointing out how we as psychologists have a variety of skills that set us up to be great consultants. I think, in the business world, you hear many, many people calling themselves consultants. And I really think it's important that we are able to talk about how we can add value as psychologists to small businesses, because I find that a lot of times there's an educational component, right? Where small business owners may not know exactly what we can do that may be different from another consultant. So I just want to briefly, before we go into the breakout groups, talk a little bit about some of the psychological issues that small businesses encounter. And Mark, I know you touched on some of these, but 6 areas that I wanted to point out where we have, really almost endless opportunities are, the first one being succession planning. And whether that's in family business, where we're helping balance family relationships along with business needs, or in small businesses with helping them to create a plan and providing an objective perspective and ensuring business continuity during the process of succession. That's one area where we as consulting psychologists can come in. And the second one, team dynamics, partnerships, Mark, that you talked about, and communication, right? We have the ability to help enhance communication, help to resolve interpersonal conflicts that may be coming up in teams and in small businesses, especially in partnerships. And then also for small business owners, a very big issue, balancing all of the business responsibilities, balancing that with your personal life. So we can really come in, especially in a coaching sense, helping small business owners to manage the stress of that, while leveraging their own strengths and figuring out where they might need help to, reduce their stress. And then the other area is crisis management. We have that skill set to really help support small businesses, just as we support others and clients individually, to navigate crises such as economic downturn, leadership changes, and things like that. And, building on crisis management, working on building resilience is an area where we can help as well on an individual level in terms of leadership, and an organizational level, helping the organization to adapt to change on a larger, more long-term scale. And then the other area, which Mark did mention briefly, is talent development and retention, right? There are lots of opportunities to help small business owners develop talent management strategies and work on employee engagement. So those are really some of just the larger buckets where we can come in as consulting psychologists. And now we're going to be, moving into breakout groups. And I encourage you to talk about, either opportunities that you're looking to explore in terms of small business, questions you may have. I really look forward to, drawing on the knowledge of the group and supporting each other, as those who are working with small businesses already, as well as those who are wanting to start.